We are back, and we just finished watching 2022's The Blackening, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. This comes to us from director Tim Story with writing credits to Tracy Oliver and Dewayne Perkins. We caught this on the Starz app, but it is also to buy rent on Prime Video. This is the story of a bunch of college friends who go on a weekend getaway to come together after 10 years, right? I think they said it was 10 years since they'd been to college. Mm-hmm. And are in this cabin in the woods, which is the precursor for just hijinks and sewing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our first time. We'd heard about this film. I think we'd seen it a couple of times as we scrolled through the channels, but we actually sat and watched it from start to finish. This story is told from the vantage point of the Black perspective. And I found it incredibly funny. And there were some really poignant character moments between Dewayne's character and the friend Lisa, who I guess he felt she'd sort of like betrayed him in a way because she got back together with her no good ex.
Sort of, yeah. I don't know if I'd qualify it as poignant.
Well, I mean, the whole arguments at the end where he's...
Yeah, I would say
kind of really get into it.
Yeah, they hit a lot of truths, but it's not anything that's going to really touch you emotionally or anything like that.
Okay, fair enough.
It's still
they
on the surface. This is a horror comedy.
Comedy, yes.
They're not really going to be tugging at your heartstrings or
no, but
making you reevaluate relationships in your life.
No, but there's some sweet character moments that I think kind of gel with the idea of coming together with friends that you haven't seen in a long time, and also the idea of people disappointing you, right?
Yes.
So
especially
think
friends.
Yes, especially friends, right? So I think it speaks to that. And that's a universal thing. It's not just these characters, but I think it's a very common universal feeling. What did you think of the film?
I liked it. I was actually pretty surprised because just scrolling past it and just based on the title, I thought it was just going to be like another one of those sort of Wayne's Brothers scary movie sort of things where it's sort of just like almost like Airplane, but with black people. No, this wasn't like that. This was a straight up horror comedy. I think his name, Tim Story, and the writers, they did a great job as far as balancing that.
Yes.
Which is, sometimes that's a hard thing, especially balancing two genres like horror and comedy.
And comedy is hard.
Comedy is always hard. Yeah. But like balancing it with horror aspects, a lot of times when you see people going for that, it's either they go too far in one direction or too far in the other.
Right.
Or they just rely on the comedy comes from a physical comedy or just splat stick, he's vomiting everywhere. There is some puke in this.
Yeah.
But it serves its purpose in a funny way. It's foreshadowed. It makes sense. But the comedy comes mainly from the character interactions. And they're dealing with a bizarre situation, but it's never once not taken seriously because it's life or death. It's not a scary movie. It's not like somebody's going to go through a wall and have their shape in the wall or anything silly like that. So I was pleasantly surprised because that's what I thought this was going to be. Sight unseen, just especially because the title is a little silly.
Sure.
The Blackening. But I liked it a lot.
I did too. I'd heard good things about this film. It is the month of Black History, and I wanted to get another film. We're going to pair this with Miss Juneteenth, which is more of a familial drama with lighthearted moments. But I wanted to watch something light and funny. So
this fit the bill.
This definitely fit the bill.
As light as a horror
comedy could be. Sure. So again, these friends are coming to this isolated cabin in the woods, and you first see Sean and Morgan, who are, I guess, the first couple there.
Yeah, I think they're the ones who set it up.
And had invited all the other friends.
And Sean's the boyfriend.
And it's interesting because they come into a game room, and in the game room, they come across this box for a board game that's called The Blackening. And once you open the box, you are greeted with a very stereotypical image.
Yeah, it's an absolute racial caricature from Jim Crow days.
Right, which is very jarring. I think to the characters and also to the audience, because it's the connotations of those images are, like you said, from the Jim Crow era.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, they're supposed to be dehumanizing
black people.
Oh, look, they're not human like us.
Yeah, they're just
they're like some weird
caricature. And then it's kind of interesting because the little piece on the board game speaks.
Yeah, it's like a little radio transmitter or something.
Sure, but it felt very much like Scream, like the voice in Scream.
Very much like it. In fact, they're heavily borrowing from Scream as far as that aspect of Scream, where the creepy guy starts saying, let's play a game and he starts asking trivia questions.
Sure.
And instead of trivia questions just based on horror, it's trivia questions based on black people in horror.
And also life or death, because if you don't do this, then someone dies. So there's that aspect to it as well. What did you think of the characters?
I liked every character. Probably the only character I didn't quite enjoy was Clifton.
Yes.
Clifton seemed like an outlier because he was like, remember I was just praising the film about knowing the balance between horror and comedy. He was too comedy. He was too much the Jermaine Fowler, I believe, was the actor who played that. It was
we had seen in Sting.
He was also in Sting. It was like they basically were like, all right, I want you to play a character and you're sort of like Urkel times a million.
Yes.
It was a little over the top.
Sure.
I mean, I know you're trying to play like the nerdy sort of guy, but
he went a little over.
He went a little overboard with it.
Yeah.
I think they could have reined in that performance a little and still kept the essence of the character there.
Agreed.
Everybody else, though, I felt did their part.
So we had Grace Byers as Allison, who is the girl who was biracial. She had some really great lines. There was this sequence where she had been given prescription.
Yeah.
And just... It was funny because when she's by that lake, I was like, is she thinking that she's doing all these Bruce Lee moves, or is this really happening?
She's like Wolverine.
It was really funny. And then you had Melvin Gregg as King, who was a great character as well.
Yeah.
Ex Mayo as Shanika. She was great. Dewayne, who is one of the writers, as Dewayne, the friend who felt betrayed because he wasn't told that the ex Namdi was going to be there by Lisa. Lisa being Annette Robertson, and Cinco Walls as Namdi. I hope I said that correctly. I probably should have done a little deep dive on how to say all of these actors' names. Yeah, everyone did a great job with their characters. I felt like I really got a sense of who everyone was. I was cheering for them the whole night. Without giving too much away, I think the first two is jarring because it's like you don't expect it, I think.
The film gets going pretty quick.
Yes, it does.
There's very little lag time between the film starting and the first bit of action, first bit of horror to appear. Yeah, and then it
goes from there.
But that's, honestly, we've talked about that before as far as like films go, and especially a film like this, not just in horror, but any sort of popular entertainment film. Like, this ain't going to be getting any love from the Oscars or the Golden Globes or anything. They're not going for the big awards here. This is a popcorn movie. This is like, we want to get asses in seats. We want people to enjoy themselves. First 15 minutes, you got to hook them.
Yeah,
you got to have that in this type of film, and this film nails it.
Yes, I agree.
They do it. They get the hook in. You're like, oh crap, what's going to happen next? And then you start building it up. We start introducing more characters. There's more character moments. There's a lot of talking between the characters. You get a sense of what everybody's relationship is with one another. Who's the odd man out? Who used to be good friends, but they're not friends. The relationship between Lisa and Namdi and Dewayne. That there's this kind of a triangle there, not a love triangle in the romantic sense, but a love triangle in that Dewayne really cares for Namdi. He's been the guy, not Namdi. Dewayne really cares for Lisa. He's always been there for her, especially when she was betrayed by Namdi, apparently on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of like, oh, it's 10 years later. I'm a changed man. He has that discussion with King, and King's just like, saying it the same time he is.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I'm a changed man."
Yeah. Like he's been to this show before.
He's like, "I've seen this before. I've seen this before." So
you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Do you think that was sincere? Do you think Nnamdi really is on the straight and narrow now, or will he fall back into old patterns?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You just never know. Yeah. I mean, people are capable of change.
And 10 years is a long time.
10 years is a long time.
You would hope that somebody would mature.
Yeah, but who knows?
True.
I mean, people are people. Some people fall back onto old habits. We're not going to find out, or who knows? If they make a sequel to this, maybe you will. Or if they did a sequel, I would kind of maybe like a different cast, or just bring a couple of people back. You know, I like when they get fresh blood, and this is I don't want to give anything away, but this is sort of a unique horror film in the end result.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so I think, I mean, if we say too much, we would spoil it. So I think we should probably wrap it up, maybe give our numbers. I think this is definitely one of those films you get more out of it the less you know about it, I think. It's still hella entertaining.
It's very entertaining. I really like the balance between the humor and the horror. They never overstayed their welcome in either aspect. Because there were points where, you know, they were like just dealing with straight comedy. Like there was like that moment when they're all locked in the game room and they're all playing the game, and it's almost like they're getting into it.
Yes.
It's kind of like they forgot that, if we don't answer this question in 1 minute, we're gonna die.
Exactly.
There are moments of, obviously you got to suspend disbelief for certain aspects of it. But that's true of all horror films.
Allison coming down from the tree.
Yeah. They do lean into all the tropes that you've expected.
Yes.
What do you mean split up? You know,
yes.
that's not something that the black person's never going to say split up. And meanwhile, it's like, well, usually by that point in the movie, the black guy's dead already.
Sure.
But they deal with all of those like horror movie tropes.
Yeah.
And I guess they're telling it from the black point of view, where it's like, all right, you're not yelling it from the seats from the audience. They're there.
Yeah.
What? They're still making stupid decisions. Yeah, it's a horror film.
But
it doesn't work unless people make stupid decisions.
Sure. But I also like that they were like, nah, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
They made a choice that they were going to go out swinging. And I love that. I think that was another thing that it was very empowering, because, like you said, it definitely plays into those horror tropes. But here, it's a little different.
It's a little different.
Yeah. I don't want to say too much, because, again, I feel like this is one of those films that you'll get more out of it the less you know. And it's, again, to your point, it's horror, absolutely, but it's also comedy. And I think that I agree with you. I think it melded together very, very well. And I think the end result is very strong. I think the script was strong. I thought the performances were all great. I thought the story was interesting from start to finish, because it's one of those things like, who can you trust? Who can you trust?
For horror, that's just
par for the course.
An excellent aspect to have in your films, where like some of them you can't trust reality. Sometimes you can't trust the people you're with.
Right. Yeah.
You just can't trust the building that you're in.
Yeah.
This it relies on some of that.
Yeah.
And it does it very well.
Yes, agreed.
It does it well.
Some of it was very I think one of them says the cabin in the woods. Like, whose idea was this, right? And it's true. I mean, it was a beautiful cabin, but at the same time, you're in the middle of nowhere. Yeah,
they have no connection. Their phones are dead.
Yes. 1 to 10, what would you give this?
I'd probably give this a 7.
I too would give this a 7. Yeah, I thought it was really strong. It was really funny. We definitely laughed. Yeah. And the cast was really great. And I loved all the interactions. And I also liked those character moments, those personal, where they really get into, like, sort of like in real life when people disappoint you. And they hash it out, and it seems like at the end they're all stronger. All right, no critique really here. I think 7, absolutely. If you have the Starz app, definitely check it out. It is The Blackening from 2022, rated R, again, with a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. What would you say, like 14 and up, maybe 15 and up?
Yeah.
There's a lot of cursing.
There's a lot of cursing. There's some drug use.
but that's
There's
about it.
There's mentioning and I guess innuendo, sexual innuendo, but nothing as far as that goes. And as far as like the horror aspects, it's not really that bloody or gory. Nobody's getting dismembered. There's very little blood actually.
There's very little blood, but it is terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It is tense and
terrifying. People do die.
Yeah. All right. So again, from 2022, The Blackening, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. It is on the Starz app. Check it out. From director Tim Story, with writing credits to Tracy, Oliver, and Dewayne Perkins. And with that, we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.